Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to Malvern. I hope you've had a very pleasant journey all the way from Italy. Now, you'll forgive me for being blunt when I say categorically that I'm afraid you've wasted your time coming here today. The Morgan Motor Company has a proud 110-year history of independence as a quintessentially British company. And I can say most firmly that we are not for sale. I hope that's clear enough for you to understand. I see you've now placed an enormous bag of money on the table. And can I just say once again, buongiorno and welcome to your new home. Molto bene. You know, I really must get my wife to make you her spaghetti bolognese. Hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed. He's Zog.
Hello.
He's Richard.
Hello.
I'm Gareth, and that's Finn interrupting. Can you hear that?
I think he's becoming more vocal more often during these shows, you know. Is that my imagination?
I think he actually understands the words, hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed, and then starts shouting at that very point.
Except when he wanted to shout.
Yeah,
when he
goes
shuts
silent. There he goes. Finn, hush.
Are we sure that's not your voice that's making that noise? You have a frog in that throat, but you have a cat.
Hello, Finn. He's in here now. Finn, settle down, please. Anything. Because we want to talk about Geneva. The first thing I want to say about Geneva is Alexander Bastido.
Are we allowed to say it on a family show?
We have to say, yes, we are. Probably not old enough to remember The Champions, Richard, are you, no?
No.
TV series made in the 60s, early 70s about these three superheroes, two blokes and a woman, who were based in Geneva. And the titles always started with the three of them standing in front of this huge fountain. And since that day, do you remember that? You know the fountain?
No, I just know the fountain.
Yeah. Since that moment, I can't think of the Geneva International Auto Salon, or wherever it's actually called, without seeing Alexander Bastido, who was the most attractive of the three champions, standing in front of that huge fountain.
Was this an ATV production, Lou Gray?
ITC would have sold it, International Television, whatever they were
But it was
called.
like sort of rash of those kind of programmes, like the Persuaders.
Yeah, definitely.
Part of that same
and
way.
in some way, they always had to end up in Geneva because it sounded terribly exotic.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've never...
Whatever's got some variation of international troubleshooting, bit of spying, bit of action,
Bit of
intrigue,
zooming about in a
bit of
Maserati.
mystery.
Yeah.
I've never actually
Bit of
been
just
to
punching
the...
a man in a fez for some reason.
In a fez.
Behind a curtain
A
in
lot of
restaurant
glamour, and it all
with
gets
a
wrapped up
Luger.
in 45 minutes.
I've never been to the Geneva show. You have multiple times, Richard.
Yes, this is the first year for a long time that I haven't gone, and it turns out
you've
that I
picked
look
a
like
good
I'm
year for
missing
this,
a
haven't you?
cracker. I know, because the truth is that I usually go because some car maker will go, oh, we'll take a bunch of freeloading journalists. Oh, that Richard Porter, he's a freeloading journalist. We'll take him. And then they'll put you in a hotel, because if they don't, hotel rooms are very hard to get in Geneva at showtime. But then I realised, having been NFI and not having an invitation of any sort on someone else's dollar, I suddenly thought, well, hang on a minute, I could pay for myself to go. Now, I won't be able to get a hotel room, and even if I do, it'll be multo expensive. But you can go for the day, because the Geneva Motor Show is in the Palexpo complex, which is basically part of the airport.
And it's actually not that expensive to...
It's
fly
not.
to Geneva.
So I only suddenly thought about this like 10 days ago and went, well, I'll have a little look on the old EasyJet website, see if I can get to Geneva. For under £150, I could go to Geneva for the day, which made me feel like I was in some kind of 1960s crime-solving thing. Just popping to Geneva for the day, dear.
Yes.
Come back in the evening. How was your day? It was good. I went to Geneva, actually.
Here's some cheese.
Yes. Here's a Toblerone. And,
cliches we
yeah,
can
you can buy those in any airport.
That's more Zurich, isn't it, clocks? More Zurich than Geneva, yeah.
Oh,
Cuckoo
I reckon
clocks.
they've got cuckoo clocks.
That's the other dangerous thing about going to Geneva for longer than a day, is that I've found myself there before, where you suddenly have some time to kill in a weird gap between sort of the day after the show, you've stayed the night, there's a bit of time before you need to go to the airport, you're in a hotel in the city centre, go for a little wander, go and have a look at the big fountain, but I always find myself just walking around going, don't buy a watch, don't buy a watch, don't buy a watch, don't buy a watch. Because there's a lot of watch shops in Geneva, funnily enough.
Yeah, I can imagine you spending a lot of time looking at watches.
I've managed to resist. I've never actually bought a watch in Geneva, but I quite like the idea. Again, because it feels exotic.
And army knives? Have you a collection of army knives?
No, I've
as
never.
well?
No,
I love a Swiss Army knife. Those
I like
Do
the
you?
Belgian army knives. Don't
Victorinox
sell as well, do
blades,
they?
yeah.
It's always Swiss army. What's wrong with the
Swiss
Belgian
army,
army?
so
Yeah. Should we talk about the cars
We should just say that the show actually opens
this weekend?
2 days' time.
Yeah.
In 2 days' time. So
We're recording the show
so
on a
we're going on the
Tuesday.
basis of either what we know is going to be launched or what's expected to be
press
launched. 'cause
day has
there's a-
happened, so
Yeah.
pretty sure that unless someone went, did you pull the cover off? No, I thought you were going to do it. Then everything's sort of out
Everything's
there,
out of the
I think,
open.
I think.
Yeah.
There's a car which caught my eye. I mean, there are many, many cars, as Richard said. It looks like a corker this year, but a car that particularly caught my eye, the Hispano-Suiza Carmen. Now,
which one?
Exactly. Well, Hispano-Suiza are back. And I'll say it twice. Hispano-Suiza are back because Hispano-Suiza are back twice. There are two concerns who've turned up at Geneva with cars allegedly Hispano-Suizas. The first one is the Carmen. Now, this is an electric hypercar developed by QEV Technologies. So they run the Mahindra Formula E team. So apparently they know about
good pedigree
electric
for
cars.
electric technology.
And the people who run this group are called Grup Peralda. They're a Spanish conglomerate who are essentially a sort of a leisure and culture business owned by someone called Suque Mateu. Now, Mateu is the grandson of the co-founder of Hispano-Suiza.
And that's why he thinks he can use the name.
Yeah.
Or there may be more to it than that.
Well,
but,
yeah, exactly.
But he's not the only one who thinks he can use the name.
Yeah.
Well, he's the grandson.
The great-grandson of Damien Mateu, who was one of the co-founders of the original Hispano-Suiza in 1904.
I mean, my granddad was in the British Army, but it doesn't mean I'm allowed to just go and shoot guns and
Exactly.
drive a
So-
tank.
yeah.
Set your own regiment.
That's his claim to the brand, but is it strong enough? Because there's another concern. They've got a car called the Hispano-Suiza Maguari GS1 GTC, catchy name. It's based on the Audi R8, the previous generation, with a V10 engine. Now, they showed this
I
car
was going to say, this is not an entirely new thing. They showed a version of that.
in 2010.
Right.
Yeah, and they've brought it back because the guy who runs it, an Austrian guy called Erwin Leo Himmel, he claims to have bought the brand and have the rights to use the brand. And I reckon he's only showing this car again because someone else in the meantime is trying to fob themselves off as Hispano-Suiza. And I think it's like that common land law. You know, there's a law in Britain that if there's a piece of common land that's been ignored for 12 years... you can claim it, apparently.
Well,
Something like
so
that.
it's basically something along the lines of, in order to retain the rights to use the name, he maybe has to have a product out there and demonstrate that he's doing something with the brand.
But this is
Yeah,
only
that's-
like Bucks Fizz, isn't it?
Exactly.
Or the Temptations.
Yes.
There's like 7 different Temptations
Yes.
currently touring.
Or the sweet. There are 2 sweets.
Really? There's
Yeah.
a lot of this goes on, and you just go, well, I don't know.
And also, they sort of become increasingly less relevant.
You're saying Bucks Fizz aren't relevant?
Would I?
Or for that matter,
would I
Hispano-Suiza,
cast those
who
kind of
most people
aspersions? But
haven't heard of.
Exactly.
I mean, certainly most people would go, oh, they're Spanish, because it's not immediately apparent. You just go, oh, I've heard of it.
people have this vague idea that it's some grand car marque from the dim, distant past. But are either of those cars going to actually be produced? How close are they
Who
to?
cares? I mean, honestly, also there's 2 names. Just split it down the middle. You be Hispano, you can be Suiza. Oh, but I want to be Hispano. Shut up. We've got this far.
The Carmen, though, have you seen it? It's an extraordinary looking thing which sort of evokes something from the 1930s. So it's got that sort of grand history of the automobile with this tapered rear end, but with very modern underpinnings. The other car is just, it's a garagista sort of thing.
Yeah,
isn't
well,
it?
it just dicked around with an R8, which frankly doesn't need it. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I think Hispano-Suiza have got the right idea, and Hispano-Suiza have got the wrong idea.
I concur.
Okay, let's talk about Aston Martin, because, Richard, you probably know more about this than me. I was slightly baffled by the appearance of 2 mid-engined Aston Martins at Geneva. Can you explain?
Yeah, one of them is, I think its working title is the 003.
It's called the RBR 003, I believe
Yes,
now. Yeah.
because this is sort of son of Valkyrie.
Sorry, it's called the AM RB 003 now. apparently.
Right.
Yeah.
Do keep me posted if any more letters come in while we're speaking, because it sounds like the name's getting more complicated.
Is this the Valhalla or the one that was...
Well, no, so the Valkyrie is the ultra-mega hypercar that's happening already. They'd announced that. Although, apparently Geneva, they're showing sort of proper production spec, because previously it was basically a glass fibre model, and they've been tweaking the design. This is the Adrian Newey designed one.
Yep.
This incredibly sort of recumbent driving position and an insane amount of power and all manner of aero trickery and the full Adrian Newey computer for a brain stuff going on. But it's going to cost... Actually, I forget now, £2.5 million.
And then there's a pro
plus
version
taxes.
beyond that.
Yes, there's like a sort of track version where people have gone, it's not hardcore enough, I'm afraid. An Adrian Newey design car with proper aerodynamics and sort of more power than anything.
Would you like to go pro, sir?
But this is becoming more of a thing, isn't it? It doesn't seem quite so off the wall anymore for a manufacturer to offer you either a particular car or a particular version of one of their high-performance cars that is not road legal and you can only drive on a track. And in fact, you might even have to book for it to turn up at a track at the same time as you.
Yeah. There's clearly a lot of the sort of mega riches who have got the money to just do that. The thing is, I think probably a lot of these people will go, yeah, okay, I'll have a Valkyrie, and go on, chuck a Valkyrie Pro in my basket while I'm here. I think that's the world we're dealing with. And so the AM RBR ABC 123
that's what it's called, this
003 is kind of son of Valkyrie.
I bet they're saying 003 because it's Aston.
I sincerely hope they don't, because they need to knock off. No, I bet they are as well. Stop it.
You may as well milk it. They pay for the rights.
Well, yeah. So this is going to be about £1 million. Still going to be super powerful hybrid V6 powertrain. They'll claim it's F1 inspired. But then, below that, the other mid-engine car on their stand was then sort of son of Valkyrie. They're calling it the Vanquish Vision. The Vision bit is because it's a concept car, officially.
And this has got nothing to do with Adrian Newey, this car, has it?
No, this is Aston taking... Well, they're saying some of what they've learned from working with Adrian Newey. One of the things they're saying, I think it was Marek Reitman, the chief designer, was saying, is that this car is smaller than it would have been if they'd done it before they'd worked with Adrian Newey. They've learned a lot about packaging and about sort of shrink wrap everything around the engine package and using that kind of thinking to make the car smaller. They're sort of actively now saying, well, cars are always getting bigger and bigger. We're going to buck this trend. We're going to start making things smaller and smaller because we're going to package them more tightly. And this is where it starts. So this thing, I think it's going to be related to the 003. They look quite similar.
They do,
that's why it's quite hard to understand. But the production version of this Vanquish Vision will be a Ferrari... I was going to say 488, but that's already defunct because we've got the F8 Tributo now.
That's it, yeah.
So it'll be arrival to that. But by the time it arrives, I guess whatever's replaced that and whatever's going to replace the McLaren 720S. So it's that kind of what we still call supercars, I guess, the kind of mid-engine supercar brigade. Probably be about 250 grand or something like that. So probably sort of stepping somewhere in between a Huracan and an Aventador or whatever replaces the Aventador. Yeah. Again, they say it'll have some kind of hybrid technology. V6 engine, which is a tough sell, but I think by the time this actually becomes a production car, that's what McLaren will have done as well. And who knows, Ferrari might start creeping down that route.
I like the idea of this downsizing, make it compact, shrink everything. That's tighter.
As long as there's still room for
Gordon Murray would do, isn't it?
Yeah. So there we go. So we've got three. This is the weird thing I was going to say, is that on the Aston Martin stand at Geneva, there were 3 mid-engined cars. And 2 years ago, Aston Martin seemed to have no truck with mid-enginedness because they were still doing, the Vulcan was front-engine track-only car and all of their other cars, DB11 and V8 Vantage, stuff like that. Except there's 2 mid-engine cars in Aston's past, one of which is very well known.
The Nimrod?
Can
we count that? Oh, the Bulldog, of course. Towns.
It's a concept car.
Yeah.
A running concept car from 1980 or something.
Yeah.
It was mid-engined.
Yeah,
had that
love
V8.
that. William Towns. I couldn't remember his
William
first name.
Towns, yeah. But also, lesser known, is that the V8 Vantage was originally designed to be mid-engine. And that was when Ian Callum had a little studio, basically in a shed at the side of the Jaguar design studio viewing yard, where he was still, at that point, Aston and Jag design bosses, and he was finishing off the DB9 for them and working up the early stuff on the V8 Vantage, and at that point that was going to be a mid-engine car.
Interesting.
I've seen a picture of the rendering, and then they went, it's too expensive to do that, we've got to make it all front-engine because then it can all be more related to each other, and that never happened. But now, Aston basically are going to have what I think Andy Palmer, their boss, says there'll be 3 Meccano sets from which they will spin off different models. So there'll be the one we already see, the DB11 which is also the V8 Vantage and the DBS Superleggera, front-engine sort of sports/GT car. There'll be the taller, higher-riding one, which is the DBX, the SUV. We'll also spin into these new Lagondas. That's the third Aston concept at the Geneva show, is this Lagonda SUV sort of thing.
All-terrain.
All-terrain, that's it, yeah.
Be
and
built
there's a
in Wales,
Lagonda
I
saloon.
think.
Yeah, because they will, because that's the thing, the DBX is built in Wales, so
Yeah.
that factory in St Athan will cater for all the cars built on that platform. So the DBX and then the electric Lagondas, the saloon, and an SUV sort of thing. And then there'll be a mid-engine box of parts, and that'll do, I guess, the 003 and the Vanquish Vision, whatever it becomes.
Now, you're talking about a box of parts, a Meccano set.
The Meccano is the exact word that they use.
Well, yeah, that just got me thinking a little bit about the fact that when I was reading about what had been announced for the Geneva show, it struck me there were quite a few high-end, limited production, but hoping to be, obviously very high-quality production vehicles from Pininfarina,
Yeah.
first production car they've ever made.
Yeah.
And there's this, is it Mark Zero thing from Anton Piech?
Oh, yes.
Descendant of Ferdinand Piech, from a family with getting a very strong automotive heritage. It struck me that there's obviously stuff going on in the background that means it's easier for somebody to realistically plan on producing vehicles really almost from scratch, from pulling together the
startups.
resources, the
Yeah.
engineering resources, the design resources, all of the production resources they need to build these vehicles. And so there are a lot more kind of boxes of parts, of Meccano sets around to draw on.
I reckon it's electrification that's doing it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it, yeah.
In some ways, it's the same as Kennedy's response to the Soviet Union putting up the first satellite, the first man in space, the first dog in space before that. To even the playing field, he set a higher goal. He said, OK, let's shoot for the moon, because they're not preparing for that. It makes it an even race. And in some ways, all these startups are doing super-duper hypercars, and they're starting from a zero position, the same as most car manufacturers, which is why they think they stand a chance of doing it. If you're trying to raise money from venture capitalists, what's the term, venture capital organisations, you have to go in with a plan, and you have to say, well, it's going to be an electric car, because no one will fund anything else these days, practically. And I think that's part of the reason.
I don't think they're all electric. They may be hybrid.
There are an awful lot of electric cars appearing there,
I think
aren't
they're
there?
probably just going to get any attention. You've got to make some outlandish claim.
Yeah.
And now with the electrification or partial electrification, you can sort of say 1,200 horsepower, 1,500 horsepower, and it's not completely balmy. Whereas if you said, we're going to do 1,500 horsepower, well, aren't you using a Chevy LS with superchargers on? I mean, I'm sure you can, but what kind of race fuel will it need? When will it explode? What's the warranty like? But now you sort of go, OK, no, this sounds feasible, so you can make these outlandish claims. I mean, it's been ever thus that people have gone for these sort of ridiculously supercar-y things when they're a new car company. You just have to, because the chance of making a profit is because you can charge a lot of money for them. If you went, we're going to do a new hatchback, it's basically like a Golf. Well, we're a newcomer, be very exclusive. We
volume car.
We'll
You haven't
sell
got the
it.
ability
Well, we
to
can't
make
really build
volume.
it in volume,
Yeah,
but we
yeah.
are going to have to still charge £25,000 for it. So,
But I don't think Pininfarina are planning to become a car manufacturer who, in 5 years' time, are going to be making an electric hatchback or beach buggy or
Well,
are they?
They've got plans for 4 vehicles. The Batista is the one at the moment. The next one is an SUV to rival the Urus. Beyond that, they've got a smaller SUV and then a cheap electric car around about the price of a 911. Yeah,
Okay,
but they're not going to build a Golf. Yeah.
So the thing is, I thought you were going to say, to your point about electric cars heralding some of this change in small companies doing not bespoke cars but low-run cars. There is a reason, I think, with the electrification thing, which is that generally electric platforms work on this almost like skateboard principle, and so it perhaps is a bit easier to build up a body on top of it, because the Batista is Rimac know-how underneath. They're just taking that.
And interesting, VW are talking about putting out their, what's it called, their MEB platform, making it available for other manufacturers in the way that the beach buggy was built on the VW rear engine platform. They're sort of looking back at their old heritage.
I think there's a more pragmatic reason for that. Is that and this is something that's affecting all car companies. They're building brand new platform with brand new tech, brand new to them. They haven't done pure electric cars before, most of them. It's incredibly expensive. And so they're just trying to hedge it a bit. Even VW, hugely rich corporation, are going, well, hang on a minute, we could maybe get our money back a bit quicker if we license it out to other people. Interesting tactic. I was saying something I learned this week, which I think is really fantastic. Well, two things actually. I was going to say the car of the year was announced on the eve of the Geneva show. I swell with a little bit of pride because the Jag I-Pace.
Hooray.
Mine's supposed to be turning up this month, so so I wonder if they'll have time to put the little sticker in the back window. But
Of course, you bought a Fiat Strada or a Ritmo in the past.
Yeah.
And
Do you know what? Someone said, I mentioned this to someone. I went, oh, well, so it turns out my new car's car of the year, and they went, oh, well, that's. Thanks. And they went, have you not owned a car of the year before? And I went, no, I haven't. And I realised, actually, we have, because we had a Fiat 500. That was car of the year. And my dad used to have Chrysler Alpines, and that was car of the year. So, so I feel like I'm carrying on the tradition there. But the other thing, and this is just fascinating, because it's general electric car stuff, of which there's going to be more and more and more of this kind of thing. It was something I was reading. You know, the I-Pace has a very long wheelbase, and the wheels are pushed right out to the corners, and particularly at the back. The rear overhang is very small indeed. And apparently, if this had been a 400 horsepower internal combustion car, rear-wheel drive, as a Jag would have been 10 years ago.
They would have done wheelies.
They couldn't have had that shorter rear overhang because there wouldn't have been sufficient weight over the back end to give it adequate traction. So it's only because it's four-wheel drive because it has a motor on each axle.
But it can do that.
And that they're able to play more tunes on traction control using the intelligence of
Interesting.
electronics. So it's a weird way, it's electronics, or electric cars rather, have liberated styling because designers love short overhangs.
Well, and there's another reason, I think, why I would imagine it's liberated styling and liberated designers in other respects, in that surely if you're putting together an electric vehicle, sure, there are some things that you can't move around so much, but there are a lot of components that are kind of easier to move around relative to one another in the whole architecture of the vehicle than in an internal combustion engine vehicle. You can shuffle batteries around all over the place. You know, usually you're going to put them as low as you can and out of the way of the people, but you can move batteries all around the place. A lot of the other electronics you can move around, power control stuff. Wheels and suspension have kind of pretty much got to be on the corners, but
yes,
but you've got a fair bit. But hey, maybe you can play about with that.
I was going to say, well, actually, that's just the kind of stuffy thinking is why you shouldn't run a car club. No, but it's interesting, and it goes back to this thing about Aston as well. It's like, well, that Vanquish Vision is like, well, it's only got a V6 where once it would have had a V8 at least.
At least. Yeah.
And a V6 is just inherently smaller, though also a more disappointing engine format. But let's go bog down in that.
But it's a smaller thing, so you've got a smaller package to fit in.
But then the extra oomph comes from electric motor, which I'm going to guess is probably on the front axle. I don't know for sure. But so already you've taken that away from the engine bay as it was in the middle, so then you can more tightly wrap the bodywork around that, and then you can still get a nice snubby nose with an electric motor buried in there, and then you just got stick the batteries in what was the transmission tunnel-y type thing in the middle. It's
BMW are sticking straight sixes in at the moment. I think it's about time we had a straight 7. That'd be lovely, wouldn't it? I mean, we've had 5s.
Well,
Why not have a straight 7?
interesting.
I certainly can't think of a 7-cylinder engine vehicle.
Any
There's got to be a reason why it doesn't.
They don't count though, do they? They're usually 9, aren't they? I would think. But a straight 7, it would give you the performance of a straight 8 with the economy of a straight 6.
The performance of a straight 8 with a broken cylinder. With one spark plug missing.
Let's stay with mega ultra future cars. Well, actually, maybe it isn't a mega ultra future car anymore. The Koenigsegg Jesko. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
300 miles per hour. But I believe it's using steam, isn't it? Is it petrol or oil? It's using some old-fashioned form of power, I believe.
Has that not got anything electric on it?
I don't know. It's probably a bit of hybrid,
kind of in on that a little bit. They've done that fascinating... what's it called? The one with that's got no gearbox, because the electric motor does the sort of hard work to like get it off the line and stuff, and then it just has an incredibly flexible, torquey internal combustion engine as well.
You can do away with
one gear, which Alex Isogonis, Mr. Mini inventor man, was mucking around with stuff like that in the late 60s, early 70s. There's a one gear, or they call it the gearless Mini, that still exists in the museum.
Hybrid powertrains allow you to do away with reverse for your internal combustion engine. You just have an electric reverse. There's the advantage there. Yeah, that Koenigsegg is brutal. 300 miles per hour.
The tyres must be quite a challenge for that.
Oh, yeah.
Who makes those tyres?
For Koenigsegg? I don't know. Who makes the tyres for the Bugatti? Yeah, because that'll be the most outrageous
they were
performance.
Michelin's, I think. Certainly on the Veyron. They're hugely expensive. Most tyres on really, really high performance cars now are bespoke. They're as bespoke as other parts on the car. You know, tyres used to be very generic, and they still are on sort of low end of stuff. But a new Porsche 911 GT3 or something like that, the tyres will be made in conjunction with Michelin, Pirelli, or whoever.
And they'll be left and right as well.
Yeah, and they'll be handed, and also, they're wider at the back, obviously, on 11s and a lot of other stuff. And so I don't know whether Koenigsegg get bespoke tyres or if they just sort of piggyback off some other hypercar tyre. But, yeah, quite serious bits of...
While we're talking
fire.
about Bugatti, Zog, have you seen the Voiture,
The Voiture Noire, yeah.
What a name.
The Atlantic-inspired tribute, new most expensive car in the world. I mean, I have to say, the first thing I thought when I read that was, that sounds like a very bad idea. Just because, if you know a bit of Bugatti history, the Bugatti company Mark I went bust largely because it launched the most expensive car in the world and then failed to sell enough of them.
Is this history repeating
Yeah,
itself?
they launched the Royale basically just as the world economy tanked, couldn't sell them, company went bust. So
It's also because they were trying to upsell people to the Royale with cheese.
Well, that. Well, and you know, if you're selling it for $2.99 when it's cost you, you know, 400 billion francs to make, you're not going to do so well. But that said, they seem
This
to
is
be
a one-off, isn't it?
Yeah,
So-
this is.
so
Yes,
they've kind of-
this
they've
isn't
covered
quite so
that.
reckless. It's a one-off. They've already sold it, so
What, literally one car?
literally one
Yeah.
car. It is a one-off, and I think it was 12 million.
Yes,
Yeah.
euros.
I don't know whether that's euros,
Plus
pounds, or
tax.
dollars, but it's 12 million. Whether it's euros, pounds, or dollars, it's
That's a lot of
It's a
money.
hell of a lot, and yeah, it's already spoken for. They won't say who's ordered it, who's bought it, but they've clearly
somebody
covered their
was-
costs on that. So,
Yeah.
so this one is not going to sink the company.
There's another car that's almost stratospheric, nowhere near that sort of region of that Voiture Noire.
Yeah.
But Rolls-Royce have started doing these collection cars, these limited edition versions of their cars. And they've done a version of the Phantom called the Tranquility, I believe, at the moment, which is kind of appropriate considering we're in the 50th anniversary of the landing at Tranquility Base. And you're going to love this, Sog. It's got part of a meteorite in this car. The theme is tranquility. It's all white inside. It's all lovely. It's nice. It's calm. It's Rolls-Royce, sir. Don't worry, I'll take care of that, sir. But it's actually got, I've got to read this, it's written down here, the name of it, the Muonionalusta meteorite, which is found somewhere on the Finnish-Swedish border in the same year that Rolls-Royce were founded, in 1906. And it's actually got a bit of that meteorite, I think, in the volume control or something.
Is it an iron meteorite or a rocky one or
And if it's an iron
chondrite?
meteorite, I'm not certain. But there can't be very much of this, and they've shared it amongst these limited few collection cars.
But actually, it's at the same time that bits of meteorite are wonderful things to have or to gaze at, although in a way you could regard as being kind of mundane because they often look like just little bits of rock.
Yeah.
But these are bits of rock or bits of metal that are probably 4.5 billion years old.
Happy birthday
And,
to
you know, how often do you get to handle something that's 4.5 billion years old? But you can buy little bits of meteorite surprisingly cheaply.
Can you?
Yeah.
You can get them in the Science Museum. You can buy bits of meteorite, can't you?
Yeah, and you get meteorite jewellery. A couple of years ago, I picked up an ear stud made out of a tiny chunk of meteorite, which unfortunately I lost last month somehow. It cost me 25 quid or something for what to me is an absolutely magical little
Bits of
rock.
space.
Well, you should buy
Yeah,
one of
it is
these,
a bit of space,
these
exactly.
Phantoms.
Yeah, it'll suit you,
Yeah.
sir. Ooh.
You get a bit of meteorite in your
Reckon
volume
they
control.
take 25 quid for it?
Oh, I'm pretty sure they'll do a deal, yeah. I just wonder if it rattles as you drive along. It sounds like it's inside the... I don't know, I might be not quite getting the gist. Anyway.
You might argue that the Bugatti Voiture Noire was the bravest car at the show. I don't think it is. Do you know what I think the bravest car at the show is?
As in, is it really a good idea to launch this car? Do we really want to try and sell to somebody car? Is that the...
Well, if I tell you what the car is, I'll then explain why I think it's brave. The Citroën Ami 1 concept.
I think that looks fantastic. I love that little thing.
It's a great car. I think it's a great idea. I'll explain why in a moment. But I think it's brave because of Citroën's rich 100-year history. They've got some glorious cars. They've plundered DS, the SM, you could bring that back. The De Chevaux, everyone loves the De Chevaux. People quite like the Diane. Does anyone really remember the Ami fondly? Do you remember the Citroën Ami with that reverse angle rear window? So to bring that name back, that's very brave. It's just the name,
Yeah,
really.
no, and
Yeah.
fair point about the name, but that's a really, I was going to say beautiful. It is beautiful. It's quite a boxy little thing, but in a very cute way.
Yes,
and it's
cute.
designed to be an urban electric runaround, I think with an eye on shared use and
Yeah.
fleet use.
Yeah.
And so they're thinking about...
Personal mobility.
Yeah. And I like what they've done with the doors on it, where the handle's on the right-hand side, whichever side of the vehicle you're on. On one side, the door
see.
latches at the back of the car.
Yeah.
On the other side, it's at the front.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit oddball, but I think it really, really works. I think it's a really really lovely little concept.
Have you seen the door handles?
I hope they make it.
I didn't notice the door handles.
They're like straps. They're like little leather straps folded back of themselves, which is fine, but I think above 30 mile per hour you're going to get as you're driving along as they flutter in the wind. But it's limited to 30 mile per hour, the car, and has a range of about 60 miles. Now, remembering what you revealed about the most popular Chinese car at the moment, is that little electric car that they make, which has a range of something like 50 miles. Keeps the costs down, makes it doable, you might say.
Having talked about some of these insanely expensive, ridiculously high-performance, either concept or production things that have been launched, it's nice to talk about something that's intended to be cheap and practical and usable and within the reach of the everyday driver, not something that you're going to have to build a multi-billion-dollar company and then sell before you can afford.
Yeah.
I see your Citroën Ami 1 concept and I raise it with the Fiat 120 concept. Have you seen this, Richard?
This is essentially a gussied up version of the new Panda, or the next Panda, I think. Which looks quite sweet. I presume, because it's got coach door sort of things, hasn't it? So the whole side of the car opens up.
Yeah.
I'm guessing the next Panda won't have that.
Show car thing, yeah.
But, yeah, it's quite cute.
Nice and square.
It's just amazing to discover that Fiat are developing any kind of new car, because they just seem to be stagnating. It's like, rather than replace things, they just kill them off. They're also saying, I think, this week...
They do small cars very well.
They do, but that's the thing. The problem
for
Fiat, and the problem why Fiat sort of struggled is that, and historically they do small cars, and they sold them in huge numbers, and they somehow have lost their way a little bit. And the profit margins are so small on small cars that even on the 500, which, they could sell for a little bit more than they could a Panda, for example, but they kind of gave up on the Punto. It's very odd. It's very strange to have Fiat just sort of threw in the towel, even in the areas where it used to be strongest. The Punto used to be best-selling car in Europe. And it's well, the Uno did, certainly. And it's like, why are they doing that? But the Panda, they've not given up on. So there's going to be a new Panda. And there's going to be a new 500, which will have, again, the buzz phrase of the Geneva show and generally the car industry, more electrification options. Do you remember that 500e? There was a Fiat 500e which they only sold in the States.
You could lease
only in
it
California, in fact.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was incredibly cheap. I knew two people in the States who were leasing them. It was like $49 a month or something.
That's ridiculous.
Until Sergio Marchionne eventually just went, please, can everyone stop buying this car? They were losing so much money on it. They had to do it because it meant they could then sell Ram pickup trucks and not get clobbered on their overall fleet average for their emissions. But he wanted to sell the bare minimum to allow that to happen.
Interesting.
And every time someone went, really, I can have it? Oh, brilliant, okay. So, they would lose the load.
Fiat Group, or FCA, they've been fairly active at Geneva. Not so many Fiats per se, but there's an Alfa Romeo Tonale concept.
That's really nice looking, that.
Isn't it?
Wait a minute, are we talking about the same thing? That sort of small off-roader thing?
Yeah, red thing, yeah.
It looks like a Brera SUV to me. Have you seen the front end? It's pure Brera. It's got a lot of Ital in it.
Well, okay, you must have seen different pictures to the ones that I've seen. Because, to be fair, I've seen some renderings, some drawings, rather than photographs of whatever they actually had on the stand. I haven't seen pictures of what was on the stand. But what I saw in those drawings... I thought it looked awful. I mean,
really?
Really, yeah.
I think it looks like a modern Alfa Sud in many ways. It's got a lot of Sud about it, which is a cool thing.
It looked a lot squarer in the renderings I was looking at.
Oh, no, it's really curvy. That's the thing. Really? I was going to say, it's got a very...
I'm going to have a look at it.
It's pretentious now. It's got very sort of fluid... surfacing on the sides, but very nice. Not voluptuous, not soft. It's still got a sort of tension to it. It's crisp, but at the same time, it's very sort of natural, very flowing.
You know what? Zog and I were looking at some Alfa Zagatos at XL just the other week. Yeah. It looks like one of those Alfa Zagatos. Okay. It's exactly as you're saying, that fluid, slightly bulbous feeling about it.
Well, if it looks anything like that, I'm in.
It's got a lovely sort of... And that's the thing, because a lot of car design now is... all, random lines and slashes and creases and things that modern...
how can we make this thing look possible, a bit more interesting?
And that's the sort
of
desperate way to try and make things look more interesting, because it is all about the sort of final way you treat a metal surface, because fundamentally, everyone's just making SUVs that are all sort of proportionally the same, basically. But this Alfa is sort of very, very clean lines. And as Gareth said, it's gone back to a sort of Brera, very slim, starey, scowly headlight, rather than those funny sort of lights on the
Giulietta?
The Giulia and the Stelvio.
Yeah.
But which are both, I think, sort of... They're not hideously ugly cars, but they just sort of feel like they could be prettier. And this seems like it is actually getting towards... As small SUVs go, I think it's quite a looker. It's the Jeep Renegade underneath. When it makes production, it's still a concept at the moment, apparently. So it's going to be quite small as well, because those Renegades are massive. So
you mentioned cars with unnecessary edges to them to make them interesting. Have you seen the Ginetta Acula? their hypercar.
Oh, God, yeah, it's awful.
No, it's an absolute dog's dinner. I'm glad it's not just me thinking this.
No, it's horrendous.
Shocking.
Also,
I could have designed a better
can
car.
we just... There's something else that needs debunking here, in which
Yeah.
I've seen, like, Her Majesty's Autocar continually peddling this fib. Giannetta's own engine. It's not Giannetta's own engine. It's a crate engine from the US, which they modify to their specs. Not their engine.
A crate engine?
You know, GM
like an
and Ford
LS1,
do...
LS2,
Yeah, exactly,
yeah,
yes, one of those.
yeah.
Or something like that.
Well,
Yeah.
well.
It's all horse plot. Anyway, that Alpha looks nice. So another car which I really like, ordinary car, not sexy, not super exciting, but is really, really nice, is the new Peugeot 208.
It's
Right,
gorgeous!
yeah, and the 508 concept as well. Also,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
did really
Yeah.
nice.
And do you
lovely
know
styling
what?
on that.
Again, I don't want to sound
It's
very
nice to see
pretentious
Peugeot.
and trying to be a car designer, but there's something which I think is really good about that 208 is that obviously some people who now work at Peugeot know how to draw cars again, because they had those wilderness years when all their cars looked frigging awful. And suddenly, it's not just the fact they look nice, but also that I think some very clever designers have sat for a long time figuring out a design language, a set of cues and shapes and things that could be applied equally to a little compact hatchback like the 208 that also work on a big saloon like the 508. Because the 208 looks like it's from the same family as the 508, and yet they don't look similar because their shape and proportions are different. But you go, oh, look, those are two Peugeots from the same family of cars.
Yeah.
In the way that actually Peugeot's used to, you know, when the sort of the
Yeah.
305 and the 505 look of the family, and then the 205 and the 309, the 405, you know, all shared sort of things that made them obviously of the same
Yeah, you could see the same DNA
car
in
maker,
there.
yeah, in a very nice, elegant way, where none of them looked contrived, but they all did look like they were related.
That 208 has got a brilliant reinvention of the 205's C-pillar, hasn't it? It's almost a copy, but it's not a copy.
Yeah.
It absolutely evokes it.
That's the thing. I think it's
done
a
ever so
really,
well.
really clever
I
bit of
agree.
design.
And is that going to be the basis of the next Astra then, that car?
Corsa.
Of course.
The next Corsa was, I gather, nearing completion, and when the Peugeot sale went through, so they've had to bin it off.
Oh, really? And re-engineer from
And
start?
re-engineer it. It's coming out quite soon. They've done a real sort of crash job on it. But what they did, I think, supposedly what they did was they said, well, we'll keep the style, we'll keep the way, because we'd signed off for the looks, but then you can't just drop that immediately onto someone else's platform because it won't necessarily fit. Because you'll go, oh, the firewall or something, which is an integral part of the platform, you can't change, it'd be too expensive. It's a little bit too tall to allow the scuttle to be where we want it to be. You move the scuttle and the whole design goes to cock. So it's one of those things where you have to sort of re-tweak everything, and they've done that, and it's on the 208.
Lovely
which
job.
is going to be usual range of sort of petrol engines and diesel, I guess, but then also electric version. And they're making a big deal out of this, so I'm sure the same was true of the e-Golf and possibly the e-Up, that it'll go down the same production line. So whatever version you order, it all goes down the same production line, which obviously brings economies of scale. And then it's going to be related to a Corsa and Citroens and all sorts of stuff.
That other car that Peugeot have previewed recently, that electric car that is evoking the old 504 coupe, what's it called?
I can't even remember it.
Yeah. There are lots and lots of people calling, oh, please build it, please build it. They're not going to be able to. That front end will never meet modern crash regulations. It's basically a razor. It's going to slice people in two. That ain't going to happen.
Also, I didn't like that.
Oh, that
I
was
think I'm
nice.
the only person who didn't like that. I thought that they'd done the top bit, the glass house,
Very thin.
and
Yeah.
delicate to look
Ooh,
like
yeah.
a 70s car. Fair enough, but then the bottom, sort of swollen and muscular and using modern kind of surfaces.
Unbalanced, really.
It didn't sit right together.
Yeah.
I could see what they were trying to do, and it wasn't awful, but I just thought they could do better. And they wouldn't look like that even if they did production, because they had to make the pillars thicker to get the airbags and chisel in. But anyway, I just wanted to mention, there's something I thought we should bring up, is the Honda E prototype.
Absolutely.
Have you seen this?
Polestar, but no, Honda.
Oh, the Polestar as well, yes. The
Yeah,
Polestar's interesting, isn't it? But have you seen the Polestar in profile?
Yeah.
It's a Saab.
It's also that
Hey,
Kia Stinger in many
nothing wrong
ways
with
as
a bit
well.
of
Long
Swedish
bonnet,
styling.
rear stumpy tail.
yeah, it's a bit-
nice, bit like the XE in that respect as well. Cute, but you're right.
Yeah, at the back, I think mainly it looks like one of those sort of, it could be a modern interpretation. In fact, it looks a little bit like there's some of those renders they released of what the next Saab 93 was going to be if it had ever seen the light of day. But yeah, that Honda E prototype, I thought, because that is basically the production car now.
Yeah.
There was the concept last year, and this is not prototype at all. It's
Yeah.
near
Near
as damn it.
production,
And I don't know, it looks mega.
Yeah.
It's really, really good.
I'd say one thing for that car, it does look absolutely gorgeous. Love the fact that they're, at the moment, saying that it's going to have rear-view cameras instead of wing mirrors. I don't know if they're allowed to do that
No,
legally.
they can in Europe now.
Yeah.
You can't in the US because the Audi e-tron has them as well.
Oh,
As an
okay.
option,
Yeah.
be careful what you wish for on that front. Because, for years it's been concept cars, cameras for mirrors, and it's never happened. Finally it's happening. But apparently, in that e-tron, people I know who've driven it, the screens that show what the mirrors are seeing, too low down.
Yeah.
So you're not looking to a natural sort of, you're instinctive, you look out the window to
Yeah,
see the mirror.
yeah,
Don't you?
yeah.
You want the
Yeah,
screens where the Honda's put them, which is right at the corner of the window there.
But are we not going to just get used to it?
Maybe,
Just
but it
like we
feels
get used
great.
to
It does. You have to look down to see backwards. Tell you something else,
Yeah.
very quickly. That Aston Vanquish Vision concept, if you look at it, from the back it looks like it's got a cover over its roof. It has no back window.
Yes.
And I thought, well, that's just a bit stupid, isn't it? I know mid-engine cars don't often have good rear visibility, but I've suddenly realised something. Doesn't have to have a back window. There's technology that's already out there. It's on the new Evoque. It's just been put onto that facelifted Jag XE as well, where in the little shark's fin aerial that's on the back of the roof of a lot of cars now, there's a little camera, and that feeds into the rearview mirror. So you get a virtual rearview mirror, effectively.
That's all you need. Just
That's all you
flip
need,
it in.
yeah. We are now living in the future.
I've seen the future and
Love
it's
it,
got
love
a
it, love
camera.
it.
One final thought on that Honda before we go. A fab car, reasonable range, ever so well styled. I think it's going to bomb, certainly in Britain, but perhaps in the west of Britain. If you sort of live somewhere near, perhaps within 100 miles, 50 miles of Swindon, you're not going to buy that car, are you?
No.
Well,
You join us here at Palexpo in Geneva for the International Motor Show, and what a show it is! Behind me you can see the new creation from reborn manufacturer De Dion Bouton, a 1500 horsepower supercar with electric power. The famous French marque returns thanks to someone whose grandfather used to go to the same butcher as Monsieur De Dion, or perhaps Mr. Bouton. And the newly relaunched company's stand here in Geneva is just next to that of another new company with a familiar name. De Dion Bouton, whose 1700 horsepower electric supercar will compete head-on with the newcomer from De Dion Bouton, whose 2500 horsepower supercar runs entirely on electricity, an idea they deny they copied from De Dion Bouton, who showed up here this week with a revised version of their 3000 horsepower electric De Dion Bouton Smasher. Though don't think the French company will take that lying down, as they've revealed the first details of a new 5,000 horsepower electric supercar that uses technology from old rivals De Dion Bouton, melded to a design from De Dion Bouton, and is the first production of their merger with De Dion Bouton to form the new DD Dion Bouton company that's out to take on, you guessed it, Ferrari, and several of the De Dion Boutons. For New Zone, I'm De Dion Bouton, and so's my wife.
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
The Geneva Motor Show is bringing us lots of exciting road cars, and we are just over a week away at the point of recording this programme from the start of the F1 season with some exciting motorsport. Hooray! Have you been following testing, Richard?
A little bit, yeah. It's always, what can you tell from testing? Little bit. The Williams having a horrible time.
an absolute nightmare.
And that's all just there. But then at the top, I don't know, Ferrari were faster than Mercedes. Can you tell too much from that? There's a lot of stuff from Mercedes going, oh no, we're really going to get beaten here. I hope we don't lose in Australia because those Ferraris look really good. And you feel like, it smells of sandbag a little.
Well, a little bit, but
does sandbag
as well as
smell
being
like?
fastest,
Sandy.
but yeah, as well as being fastest, Ferrari also ran more laps in testing than Mercedes. That looks to me like Ferrari do have the edge on Mercedes.
But Mercedes ran a faster race simulation.
I believe so, yes.
But yes, I mean, that's the Ferrari's obviously very good,
But did you see
But
that?
it was like that last year, wasn't it?
They had a weird failure, though.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Something went bang on the left-hand side of Vettel's car and he stuffed it in the wall.
Oh, yeah.
A very strange wheel failure that they've said was something to do with a stone, because they're all running these cooling
It was a
rims.
damaged wheel rim.
Is that what it was there? They say?
At first they
was
couldn't.
spectacular.
At first they thought they weren't able to figure out what it was because there was so much damage to the car.
Right.
But then they got some more footage, got more data, and figured out that the rim got damaged on a curb or something, and that led to
It exploded with a flash. I've never seen
Really?
that before. Yeah, he was driving along and it's like bang, wow, and off into the barriers. So yeah, that was a scary moment. Williams. Now let's start at the back of the grid. Oh, isn't it sad saying Williams at the back of the grid?
It is, and I keep kind of hoping that we're going to start a season with Williams looking like they're on the path to recovery. And signing Kubica for this year seemed like a promising sign, to some extent a sign of confidence that you're signing an experienced, talented driver, albeit one that maybe not every team would call on, but there's no denying that Kubica's a very talented guy. But yeah, they lost, 2.5 days?
Yeah.
Missed out 2.5 days, and the car isn't looking quick. Nobody sounds happy with the way things are going.
Not only is the car not looking quick, it's not looking particularly gorgeous. That's not the best paint scheme, is it, Richard?
Yeah, because they gave up one of the
Martini,
best,
yeah.
stripy martini,
Beautiful.
lovely, and now they've got this graduated fade around the Rocket logo. What do Rocket do? I went to check today, and they are pretty much ungoogleable in the UK because Rocket is a small chain of vintage clothing shops in London, and their SEO is clearly better than Rocket, who turn out to be a sort of telecoms company. So they seem to sell sort of cheap handsets some places. They're an affordable Wi-Fi provider in some countries. They've not launched in the UK yet. That's why if you try and look them up here, they're a hard search. You have to really do your homework. But I guess they're more known in other parts of the world. But it's just the fact that the colour schemes got an awful sort of white to blue fade, like something from the 90s.
But you can forgive any colour scheme as long as the car has the performance. But this car doesn't have that excuse.
But the old F1 adage, Zog, if something looks good, it probably is.
The worst thing is that they've got arguably the best engine in F1 at the moment. The Mercedes donkey back of it. Sorry, power unit, not engine, power unit. And that can't make the car go quick. The drivers, of course, Robert Kubica, who's running under Two Fat Ladies, 88, and George Russell, who I believe is an estate agent. He sounds like one, doesn't he?
Oh, Butcher. Could be.
George Russell Butcher.
Oh, fine Butcher.
I love that idea.
Or just one of those really yappy little dogs that your legs.
Oh, it's George Russell.
Oh,
Get
you
off.
got George Russell? Oh,
In number 63, shame. What a great tragedy there, way at the back. Okay, next to them at the back of the grid, well, it's either going to be Sport Pacer Racing Point F1
Sport
team.
Pacer do?
The team formerly known as Force India.
The team formerly known as Spiker, the team formerly known as Midland, the team formerly known as Jordan.
Yeah, but when they changed names on those occasions, it was sort of like a complete rebranding. This is just they've crossed out Sport India and written Racing Point over the top with a
kept
marque.
the same sponsor, didn't
It's
they?
like all the car looks the same colour scheme, that
good
BWT pink and everything. Which when I went to the Belgian Grand Prix last year and they just had the sort of whole change of ownership thing, where it said Force India on their team shirts, they literally just covered over it with gaffer tape.
Useful stuff, gaffer tape.
And they're
Not knocking gaffer tape.
Now
there's a sponsor.
I like the way they're disguising their heritage as well, because their car is called the RP19. I know it's for 2019, but it rather suggests that there have been 18 Racing Point cars before this. Oh, did you know, by the way, they tried to license the name Lola. They wanted to run the team as Lola.
really?
Did they?
And they contacted the people who own the brand Lola, and they said, off.
Is that Eric? It's not.
It was Eric Broadley, not anymore.
No.
It's now owned by Multimatic, a Canadian concern, I think.
The Kinks.
Yes, the Kings own it. Ray
A
Davis.
sensible buy on Ray Davis.
They'd have offered the name up for enough dosh, though. I mean, presumably it was just a question of they didn't want to pay enough for it, I assume.
Great name. Love Lola.
Racing Point is a.
What is it?
Well,
What's the point of racing?
Racing Point. Yeah, no,
It's one of those names.
It's not a great name. It's not a great.
So they've got Perez, number 11, and Lance Stroll. Great guy.
Daddy, I want an F1 team for my birthday. Okay. Then.
Well, he's got it now, so time to deliver. He's
Yeah, because his dad's not going to fire him, is it?
Annie Bradshaw, who did the PR for Lance Stroll last year at Williams, may or may not be biased, is absolutely adamant that he's going to outpace Sergio. And Annie knows Sergio from his A1 GP days and loves him. She thinks he's going to be... I don't know what she bases that on. Do you think that's going to happen?
No.
I don't know. I like Perez. I'll be quite impressed if Stroll does that. He's certainly shown flashes of some talent.
Flashes of cash, I thought you were going to say.
He does bring sponsorship. Lots of
does he?
sponsorship. Yeah.
He certainly does, but he's been doing this long enough now that he has to start delivering and deliver more consistency as well, rather than have those ups and downs of being good one race and then settling back into...
When were those races? I don't remember those.
He made the podium.
He did in Baku, didn't he?
Was it Baku?
Or did he crash in Baku?
Wasn't it a wet race?
I'm going to say crash, because that's more likely, isn't it?
But I think so. Let's not be too.
Do you know what? If he turns out to be blistering this season, and let's be honest, the Force India team traditionally are one of those teams that they're sort of often kings of the midfield, aren't they? They pull it out of the bag. They
always
just put
do well
together
at
a really
Spa.
tidy car.
Yeah.
Always at Spa.
They've got a strong Mercedes engine, potentially strong if it was like last year. Everything is there for them to do good business, and so now it really is put up or shut up. Because how long will Daddy tolerate you just hacking around and bumping into things,
and
Nancy
also,
boy? But if it turns out he's brilliant, Annie Bradshaw herself, PR whatever she is, can come round here and feed me my own words with a big spoon.
Okay, well, we'll have Annie along to do that if that turns out to be the case end of this year. There we go.
I wouldn't buy the big spoon just yet.
Next to them on the grid, the slightly confusingly named Red Bull Toro Rosso Honda.
Done that?
Yeah,
Red Bull Juniors.
Yeah, they've got the STR14 with the Honda RA6 19H engine, driven by Alexander Albon, number 23.
He is, fact for you, the first Thai driver in F1 since the mid-50s.
Which would have been Prince Bira.
That's right. Spotter's badge.
So, was he a prince, or was that just his name?
No, he was a member of the Thai royal family.
Yeah, it was a prince, I think Prince of Siam, as it was then, wasn't
yes.
it?
Yeah, I think
Shall we dance?
And Bira is short for something slightly longer, Birabong something, can't quite remember. But
Albon is the first Thai driver
British
for
Thai.
60 years. Well, yeah, he was educated in the Thai city of Ipswich in Suffolk. Born in London.
Far East, isn't it?
Yes, Far East Anglia.
I can't remember if it was Lando Norris or George Russell, but one of the guys who's raced against Albon in the last couple of years in F2 said, don't underestimate Alexander Albon. He won a race in F2 last year. Brilliant drive. I rate him. And Daniel Kvyat, the comeback kid, is the other driver in that car, number 26.
Now, two things. Well, first of all, did you know Kvyat chose number 26 as his race number? Because he just went... Oh, it's a number that has no meaning to me, but I want to make it have some meaning. Interesting logic.
So it's a kind of obscure, not particularly well-known number.
Yeah.
He wants to kind of drag it out of obscurity.
Yeah, but I'm going to make it.
Make it a better
when people
known,
hear 26
more
from now
popular
on,
number.
they'll say, that's that guy who's driven for Toro Rosso on 3 separate occasions and got binned off from Red Bull.
I heard it was Vladimir Putin's favourite number, and that's why he chose it.
Well, the thing is, it occurs to me,
it's quite impressive.
It's third time around for him. So the point of Toro Rosso is a sort of almost like a feeder team for Red Bull. If you're good enough at Toro Rosso, when the opportunity arises, you'll get pumped up to the
which
big
is
league
what
of
happened
Red Bull,
to Kvyat.
Which is what happened to Kvyat. He made a bit of a mess of it, got bumped back down again, and then binned off entirely. And now, for the third time, they've asked him back. How does that work? Also, Albon was on the Red Bull Juniors team, and he got binned off, and then they've asked him back. So this system doesn't work.
They've run out of drivers, basically.
They're not looking
is,
terribly decisive, are they?
No, it doesn't look like a well-oiled machine. I mean, if this was a medical school, you'd go, now, hang on a minute. I'm sorry, I do not want heart surgery done by someone you previously had to let go for not being good enough.
They're taking their exams for the 4th time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's look at Renault. They've got the Renault E-Tech 19 engine in the RS19 chassis, driven by Daniel Ricciardo, number 3, and Nico Hülkenberg, number 27. Ricciardo's got a lovely pink helmet this year. Have you seen his lovely pink helmet?
I'm not going to answer that question. It might get me in all kinds of trouble.
And it's got messages on it as well. It's got the honey badger written on it, but it's also got, what does it say? Play hard, be fair, or something like that, which is a slightly odd thing, I think, to have on a helmet.
I mean, that's not a bad sentiment, is it? You know, you want racing drivers to kind of play hard, and you want them to be fair, not to be...
Play fair, be hard. It works either way around, but it's...
It does actually, doesn't it? Yeah.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's like a fridge, and they're stick on, and you can move them round. Makes some meaningless phrases on the back of his helmet. We're only a short step away from having some kind of thin film like e-ink built into the helmet, so they can actually have, like, your tweets will show up on his helmet during the race.
Oh, God, don't suggest that.
I'm telling you, it'll happen.
It will.
I'm stoked, mate. I'm stoked. You can have that every time he overtakes. And let's talk about Rich Energy Haas F1 team in the Haas Ferrari VF19, another vertical fabricating machine.
Milling machine, yes.
Yes, with the Ferrari 064 engine, Romain Grosjean, number 8, and Kevin Magnussen, number 20, who I believe his name is Kevin, is that right?
No, it's a common misconception, though. His name is Ken Magnussen.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
And he is... still in F1.
Yeah, well, actually, he's kind of a fairly appropriate driver. I mean, Haas are sort of turning into a good, solid, reliable midfield performer.
Well, they were after that, yeah. They turned up and they went, we're going to win straight out of the box. And you went, no, you're not. Yes, I suppose you're right. But I saw Magnussen, I'm sure he's a lovely chap, but you always just look at him and go, will you ever win a world championship? No.
Yeah, exactly. He's not the driver that you'd hire. If you've got a championship winning car and you want to win the championship, you're not going to hire Magnussen. But if you're a step or two below that and you want a reliable, solid, hard-working performer who's every
You're
now and
describing
again
someone who'd help
really...
you to put up some shelves, though, not someone who'd drive your F1 car. It's like Grosjean.
And every now and again have an argument with somebody else who's trying to put shelves up.
Yes. Yes, and then just nudge into them. But Grosjean, it's like you sort of go, well, could he win a world championship? He's got sort of just enough erratic genius about him that, it might go his way somewhere. It's not impossible, whereas Magnussen, you sort of think, what are you doing here?
It's never really going to happen.
He's got too many children to be quick, I think, now, Grosjean.
Grosjean has 3 kids. I found this out the other day.
3? Yeah.
It's extraordinary, because you sort of think that F1 drivers are just constantly sort of being supermodels on a yacht. But no, he's a family man. He's got 3 kids. I know some of the other drivers have, but generally you sort of think your outlook changes when you have children.
Yeah, Michael's got kids.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm not sure who else does that, but yeah.
Vettel, I think his girlfriend has got one. Yeah, they're not married. Who else have we got? Valtteri hasn't, has he? No, he hasn't. Mind you, married to Amelia, you'd expect him to have at least 1,000 children.
The others are retired.
Is she? I don't know.
She's gorgeous. She's angelic. She's so lovely.
Really?
Oh, bless her. Sorry, I'll come back now, James. Where were we? Haas, they had a reasonable time at testing, nothing spectacular.
What did they finish? 4th in the Constructors' Championship last year.
No.
Sorry, they were after Renault. So it was Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, Renault, and then Haas.
Yeah.
But
right.
that's
incredible.
Pretty solid.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a good chance they'll be doing that again this year.
Here's the thing, McLaren F1 team. Do you know what their correct full title is of their team? McLaren F1 team. No sponsor there with the MCL 34.
No, but they've got tobacco money, haven't they? That they're not allowed to mention.
Yeah, BAT, British American Tobacco. I've got a message on. It says something like building a better, or for a better tomorrow, something like that.
Yeah.
But there's some debate as to whether they will actually be allowed to have that on the car when they get to Australia, because it's still a tobacco company.
Because Ferrari have been told that they're not running that Mission Winnow branding because it's too similar to the Marlboro branding.
Yeah. No, because it is Marlboro branding. Yeah, even in black against red as opposed to white, it is. There's no two ways. Well, it's Philip Morris, who are the parent company of Marlboro. But Philip Morris own all the space on the Ferrari. You know this, and they sublet it to everyone else. Yeah.
So does this mean they're not allowed to write lovely smokes down the side of the car either?
I bet you're gasping for a tab.
Yes.
Probably
it's
not.
like that episode of Father Ted when he gives up smoking and everywhere he looks just sings the tune. Someone exhales and it just says lovely smokes in the smoke.
Where were we? We're McLaren. Lando Norris, number 4. And Carlos Sainz, number 55. An unrecognisable McLaren. I still haven't got used to the idea of McLaren with Renault engines. And I certainly haven't got used to the idea of McLaren with 2 drivers. Not only have neither of them won a world championship, which is unusual for McLaren. They've had a world champion driver for many, many years.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, Alonso, and then Button with Alonso, which is double world champions, and then
Lewis,
and then they were actually winning world championships themselves. So that is
weird, isn't it?
State of where they're at. But then I don't know. Norris is meant to be all right, isn't he? And
great, actually.
Sainz Jr. has his moments.
Yeah.
And so, who knows? It's down to the car a lot, isn't it? Can they get that car sorted out?
They were looking okay, but I kind of think they might be doing just a little bit better. If they'd stuck with the Honda engine,
Yes.
know? I guess because of the way that relationships had gone, and maybe even for PR reasons as well, they kind of had to ditch
because
Honda. But I
their
think from
lead
a
driver
practical-
kept saying that the engine was cack. It's a kind of hard one to PR your way out of, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it makes it hard to carry
It's
on,
then
doesn't it?
become very ironic that the engine is now quite good by the seams of it.
Talking
I don't
about
know.
the Honda engine, Aston Martin Red Bull Racing have got a Honda engine. That's so weird. Why would Aston Martin put their name on a car that previously had a Renault engine that was sold as a Tag or a Casio, and now it's a Honda? It's just doesn't make sense.
Well, again, but with both Renault and Honda, Aston are hardly competing with those companies for sales. It's not like they're,
And they'll
there's
sell you
any
a road
conflict.
car with a Mercedes engine. And they used to try and sell you a road car that was a small Toyota with a
Well,
leathery interior.
I mean, Mercedes
So,
do own
they're not-
shares in Aston Martin.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah.
But they are doing a car with Red Bull. Well, with Adrian
Yeah.
Newey, aren't they? So,
Yeah.
it's sort of, there's
That's
a bit
a
of
crossover.
crossover
Yeah,
there.
that's the
So
reason.
It makes kind of sense.
It's not exactly the first time there's been some slightly
Weird
disingenuous
cross-branding.
branding.
So we've now got Max number 33 and Pierre Gasly number 10 alongside him. Pierre Gasly's all right. Used to be a member of Supergrass, I believe, if you look at his facial hair. I'm pretty sure he was in Supergrass. And he's not going to get anywhere near Max, is he? It's all about Max. All about Max. Sure.
Yeah, it is. Max is a terrific driver.
Yeah.
Gasly is probably pretty great, but
I'm sure he's good. So he is
as
actually,
good as
isn't
a Verstappen.
But then he needs to just sort of chill out sometimes, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But then you don't have to chill out so much that he doesn't go for the really insane stuff that he makes stick, because that's what makes him exciting.
But he did kind of do that last year. Having been pushing really too hard and just trying too hard and making too many mistakes, he did dial it back and get it under control. And I think he's shown that he has the brains as well.
Yeah, that was so too patronising. I think he's just maturing a little bit, isn't he?
Yeah, well, he's only 7 now, still. Top 3 teams.
So he's a
arguably
year above George Russell, then, isn't he?
Yes, top 3 teams. Arguably the third team at the moment are Alfa Romeo Racing. But if they're Alfa
Why are they the third team?
What, third team?
well, I think they're possibly quicker than Red Bull at the moment. They've had some.
It's testing.
I know.
It doesn't mean
come on.
anything.
I know.
They finished
how many times are they
second
going
to last in the championship
But they've
last
got
year.
Kimi.
How many
Well,
times
will
are they going to
he be
out-qualify
bothered?
Red Bull this season? Come on. At all?
I think Kimi could get 4.
Oh, yeah,
on a
no,
couple
Raikkonen
of
might like
occasions.
slide it past Gasly, I think. Some random thing. Yeah, there'll be one race in the season where suddenly it's like, oh, look, not Sauber qualified in 5th or something.
Yeah, I agree.
Raikkonen at the
You
wheel.
can't rule out Kimi just pulling something out of the bag.
And how's old Giovinazzi?
He's all right. He's been a bit of a disaster when he's had tests. Oh, he had a couple of runs
And he
previously.
drove for them, didn't he? Drove for
Yeah, he
Sauber.
did.
And he
In
was-
China,
and he wasn't-
it was all over the place, I'm afraid. I don't get it. If they are Alfa Romeo now, not Sauber, why has the chassis got a Sauber number? C38. Does that mean it's been 38 years since the first Sauber? Can't be right.
Well, do they also
No,
use
that's
that,
a long
all their
time.
stuff? So were it like those racing Mercs and things with C?
Oh, maybe they did.
So there's
yeah.
been more than
Everything
one
is more
per
than
year.
one,
of
yeah.
course.
Yeah,
Do you
that's
know why?
C1,
Yes,
that's right, yeah.
Do you know why Sauber used that C? Everything that starts with a C, their code names.
No, do tell me.
Is because
Cigars. Peter Sauber likes a cigar.
no, crisps. He loves crisps.
That's what it is.
No, because his wife's name starts with a C. I think it's Christine or something like that.
Really?
And yeah, and when he started off making racing cars, he did.
Oh, good for him.
Sweet,
Oh,
isn't it?
All
Yes, I
romantic
like it.
cigars.
That's the
smoking
two
Baldy.
things
Good
about
for Peter
about Sauber I learned today. The other one is that when he went into racing, Peter Sauber, it meant him turning his back on going into the family business, which is making traffic lights.
Really?
The tremendously exciting traffic light business. I think Peter Sauber made the
It's
right
full
move.
of changes, but
So Sauber should be quick off the line at the start of the race.
well,
really,
he knows
shouldn't they?
how to read a traffic
Yeah,
light.
he does. So the top 2 teams are Scuderia Ferrari. Scuderia, it's pronounced Scuderia, not Scuderia, by the way. Scuderia, it rhymes with diarrhea. Diarrhea Ferrari. The SF90 with the Ferrari 064, Sebastian Vettel number 5 and number 16, Charles Leclerc. They're taking the battle to Mercedes-AMG Petronas Motorsport with their W10 EQ Power Plus. It's a great name, isn't it?
It's just a name, though. These are all just marketing meetings happening here.
Well, the chassis is the W10 EQ Power Plus.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's a W10 because that's just like that's
Yeah.
how you'd file something.
Yeah.
Everything else is a marketing meeting.
The Power Plus.
They
So
could call
we-
it Kenneth
that one in
Williams
there
if they
to keep-
wanted to. It doesn't matter.
No, Lewis Hamilton 44, Valtteri Bottas 77. Is Valtteri going to beat Lewis this year?
No.
No.
No, he ain't, is he?
Bless him.
Yeah, we love him. He's got a beard.
He didn't win anything last year.
No, true.
And he had some bad luck. But he sort of has a stoicism to him that you just think...
Sisu. It's
Yeah.
called Sisu. The
It's
Finns.
extraordinary, isn't it? And he is the perfect accomplice to Hamilton because he just keeps out of his way.
Yeah,
But it's quite sad.
Yeah, a little bit. From Mercedes' point of view, that must be just about a perfect driving lineup because they've got an astonishing talent in Lewis Hamilton. In Bottas, they've got a terrific number 2. He's a guy that they don't...
He's no trouble. And he is good, that's the thing. I mean,
he's really good. He's no trouble, and you're hardly ever going to have to kind of tell him to not be quite as quick as Lewis because
he knows his place.
Very rarely.
That's what I mean. It's quite sad about it. You just go, oh, is he a seething cauldron of resentment inside, or is he actually just fine with it? He's just like, eh.
At the point of recording, here we are, just over a week and a couple of days before Melbourne, and he said Adelaide there, I'm so old school. Who's going to win this championship? Zog.
I'm going to say Vettel, actually. I think Ferrari really are looking strong. For the first time in several years, I'm not sure that it's going to be Lewis, so I'm going to say Vettel.
Richard?
Ken Magnussen. Just to spite me. Just to swipe the smug smile off my face. And me being pinned down by Annie Bradshaw at the PR while Ken Magnussen goes, I see, I told you I could do it. If that's how he speaks, I can't remember how he speaks.
We'll say that.
But otherwise, Lewis Hamilton.
I'm really conflicted. Yeah, I want Lewis to extend this incredible record and at least match Schumacher. I think that would be a fantastic thing if we can get there. So that means he's got to win this year to be able to do that. I think once Lewis loses momentum, he'll lose interest and he'll go to fashion and rock and roll. He won't be interested in F1 anymore. However, I do like Charles Leclerc. I think he's an extraordinary talent. And if he gets ahead of Vettel in the first few races, if Vettel's still slightly fragile like he has been and makes a couple of mistakes, and Leclerc gets that momentum, a few extra points by race 4, if Ferrari get behind him, Leclerc could be the champion at Ferrari, or certainly the champion that Ferrari will back for the championship. Their vanguard, the man that they'll get behind. And it would be amazing. To have Ferrari winning again would be wonderful. To have Leclerc winning because he's just magic would be wonderful. Is it going to happen? Who knows? We'll find out soon, won't we? Yes, I hope.
10 days? 10 days to go.
I'm so happy. It's been a long winter of discontent and the motorsport is back. He was Richard.
Goodbye.
He was Zog.
Goodbye.
I was Gareth, and we'll see you for the next show in a fortnight after the racing has started again. Hooray!
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!